It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to the Insight into Conservation Biology webinar. We are gathered here today to delve into the critical role that conservation biology plays in safeguarding biodiversity and ensuring the sustainability of our ecosystem. This webinar is an excellent opportunity to learn, engage, and collaborate with the expert. We extend our deepest gratitude to all participants for joining us today. Your presence underscores your commitment to understanding and tackling the pressing issues of biodiversity conservation. Conservation biology is not just a subject; it is a mission. It integrates science, policy, and action to protect species, habitats, and ecosystems. This webinar aims to provide insights into conservation efforts, explore career opportunity in this field, and highlight the impact of human activities on biodiversity. As students and professionals in geology and environmental sciences, this session will equip you with knowledge and inspire you to contribute meaningfully to conservation initiatives. I encourage each of you to actively participate in discussion, ask thought-provoking questions, and take full advantages of this opportunity to engage with our expert. Your curiosity and enthusiasm will make this session more impactful and enriching for everyone. I extend my deepest gratitude to our distinguished speaker, Dr. Meenakshi Garu, Head Department of Geology, University College of Science, Saifabad, Osmania University. Madam completed PhD in toxicology from Osmania University and published research papers in national and international journals. Dr. Meenakshi Garu received Mother Teresa Memorial Award from Citizens Council of Telangana. Once again, a warm welcome to the Insight into Conservation Biology webinar. Now, I will now hand over the session to the speaker, Dr. Meenakshi Garu, to deliver a lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kishore, for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to have a discussion with the students. So, a very good afternoon to everyone there. Today, we have joined here for a discussion on what do we mean by conservation. We all are still staying in a hostile environment, and we have seen the changes that are being occurring throughout our life, like from your childhood to till today. You are seeing that the changes are occurring. What are those changes? Like whatever your grandmother used to cook earlier, now you're not getting those kind of vegetables. Why this change has occurred? This is a simple example to begin with. Why this is occurring? What happened to this particular? That is, the climate is being continuously changing. There is a change in the environment, and we all have to overcome these threats to survive. And life is becoming quite threatening with these changes that are occurring in our day-to-day environment that is there, our natural environment that is there, because of the various factors: overpopulation, greediness, and then our exploitation of the resources. All these factors are causing a damage not only to our environment in the urban areas, but also it is causing a lot of damage to the entire ecosystem. And we all know that ecosystem comprises of both biotic and abiotic components. Abiotic components are all the soil, water, air, or temperature, light, all these things we are seeing. And we have seen that the seasons are fading off. We are not getting any kind of seasons right now. We are not able to demarcate. In summers, we are not seeing that summer. Sometimes it starts raining suddenly, which never used to happen earlier. Why all these changes are occurring? This is because of human encroachment. So it is our necessity. It is the range of conserving this particular phenomena is laid into the youth. So today we are going to discuss about what youth can do it and what the government organizations or what the senior biologists are doing to this particular aspect in conserving our nature. And if we are not taking these steps to conserve our nature, I don't think so that our future generations will have the same kind of life what we are having. So already we started taking the water in bottles. Later on, it will be in small globlets. Water will be available only in small droplets because we are not protecting the water reserves. Similarly, the animal, any change that is occurring, the interaction between this biotic abiotic component will destroy complete ecosystems. So with that introduction, I would just like to say why we are supposed to take action against this. Let us first describe what does conservation means. Why we need to conserve it? What is a necessity? What is biodiversity? We always talk about this word biodiversity, biodiversity. What exactly it mean about? Then we are having that in this biodiversity, there are certain species that are being totally extinct. We are not able to see right now the dinosaurs. Why? What happened? That is the climatic changes that has occurred, the catastrophes that have occurred, that has totally eliminated these species. Now we have to protect those species. That so these regions have been considered to be as a hotspot regions where the population is endemic to that region. Then what are the threats to this biodiversity? Who are giving this particular threat? How we can manage it? And what are the conservation strategies that the government has taken up, the NGOs have taken up, the entire United Nations is for conservation. And later on, we'll just discuss about one or two case studies. Like first, let us see what is conservation biology. When we talk about conservation biology, it is a fascinating field. It is a growing field now. It is a budding field which focuses on preserving and protecting the threatened and endangered species. Not only the plant species or animals, the entire species that is there, right from the microorganism to the highest trophic level organisms. And not only animals, but also the habitats, the animals where they are living together and forming a habitat and thereby forming the ecosystem. And these ecosystems and habitats are facing a threat of extinction and erosion because their biotic activities will be hampered. What do you mean by biotic activities? Biotic activities is that we have already studied in our ecological studies that there is a grazing food chain. When there is a grazing food chain, the smaller organisms, suppose if we remove the bird from between, we have the pests and the birds are being removed. What will happen to the pest? The pest will destroy the entire habitat or the agricultural lands there. So therefore, the pest has to be controlled by birds. If we cannot eliminate even a single species from our environment. So these interactions has to be maintained and monitored. If they are excess, they will bring about the depletion of one particular species. If they are not proper, then we will see that there is a damage to the ecosystem function. Ecosystem will not function properly because one of the aspect or one of the team member is lost. Therefore, conservation, it is a important area which is budding now, and all of us has to drive our attention towards it. It is also an interdisciplinary subject. What does it mean that it is not only related only to biological students, it is related to social science students as well as the natural science students. Both these students, they have to put everything into practice, like management, technology, whatever technology we are getting it. Can we share it, Dr. Sri? Are you sharing it?
Yeah, wait.
Recording in progress. The first slide. Next, next. Next. Can we share it? No, before that. See, here we can see that various disciplines are linked together to give a strategy of conservation. every sense. We should know about the genetics of that particular animal. We should know the physiology of that particular animal. Then we should know the habitat, the sociology of that particular animal. So every aspect of science, they have to be compiled together for bringing about the conservation. Because when we talk about the physical, 1 minute, I'm just joining with the system, sir. I'll be just joining.
Okay.
Yeah, I just got that. Someone else is sharing. Okay. Fine. Is it okay now? Right. Now, in this particular figure, we are seeing that it is integration of all the sciences that are there, which are forming the basis for the conservation. Next slide. Now, here in the next slide, we see that science and technology, with all the resources that are there. Sir, my voice is echoing.
Mobile on here.
Okay.
System mobile window on.
Okay. So the natural resources that are there, those has to be managed. And that management can be brought about both by science and technology. Both science and technology plays an important role in bringing about it. Like science, we should know about the complete biography or complete knowledge about the animals which has to be protected. And by using technology like GIS and GPS and radio sensing, remote sensing, we are able to conserve those animals and then manage the animals. 1 minute. Then I will continue with mobile only. I'll just switch it off. Yeah. Now is it okay?
Okay.
Is it okay? Okay. So this conservation biology, this has been coined in 1978. This was during the first international conference that has been done in University of California, which is led by American biologist Bruce A. Wilcox and Saul. When you see the books written by Saul, that is Silver Springs, there he has given many strategies that has to be taken up for the preservation and conservation of the biodiversity. In this particular conference, this was the first ever conference where they have brought to the notice of the governmental organization that we have to bring about the conservation. And from there, the inception of conservation biology has taken up. And as they started seeing that there was a decline of number of species, they have given the term conservation biology, and they made it as a discipline which is with a deadline. That means that this particular conservation has to be taken up in a time frame. It is not that, okay, today we made a plan, we can take it after 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. No, it has to be given a deadline. Within 1 year, we have to achieve this particular target, because we don't know how the environmental factors are going to affect the particular population, how the population is going to react to the changing environment. If we lose a particular population in a particular situation, then it is very difficult to get back them. Therefore, we have to call this conservation biology as a discipline of deadline. A deadline has to be ensured, where we have to do the research, we have to do the monitoring, and at the same time, we have to publish the papers, or we have to give the documentation to the government organization within a time frame, so that action can be taken from them. So this is what. Now, why this is considered to be a crisis? Next slide, please. Why this study is considered to be a crisis discipline? because we have seen that 50% of the population are going to be eroded completely in next 50 years. In a couple of decades, we will see that 50% of the existing population, how the population is going to be eradicated. We have seen a recent pandemic, that is the corona. We have seen that so many people have been, uh, I mean, it was fatal to life and so many people died during that particular phenomena. Such catastrophes will be coming and then we will be wiping off the entire situation. So they have seen that the population is going to be winded up. Then that is one thing. The second thing is that, hello, sir. Okay. 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 So second one is disruption of ecosystem functions. As I already told you, that in case any of the system, that is, if plants are removed from that particular area, animals will be lost from there and it becomes a barren land and slowly it turns into a desert. And as human beings are encroaching, we are seeing that the ecosystem function and the reserves, what it is giving, the food, the fuel, and the medicinal plant, all these resources are being exploited. So ecosystem function will be totally destroyed. And we know that there is a climate change. Why climate change is occurring? This is because of the impacts from the human beings. That is the pollution that is being caused. Unknowingly, we are causing the pollution. We all know that plastics are banned, but still we carry plastic. That is, it has become a inevitable aspect, but we can use it. Only thing is, it should be recyclable. If it is not, we should not use it. We should deny it. There are certain countries which has totally banned this particular plastics. Like when we talk about Philippines, we talk about Singapore, we have seen that anything plastic cover is not allowed. Even the food material what we are carrying, which is being packed in plastics, they will remove it out in the airport itself, that it cannot be entered over there. And the PET bottles, plastic bottles, what we drink water daily, the Bisleri water, the plastic ones, those bottles are also not allowed. They are all having glass bottles. So that kind of initiatives we need to take. So we are bringing about the change by uh, adding pollution to the environment. And next one is invasive species. That means what is happening during this? A particular locality will have a definite type of animals. Like for example, you see Australia, you see kangaroos there, polar bears only in the area. That means they are present in that particular area and they will be happy living in that area. But what are we doing is, due to migration, human migrations, we are contaminating that particular area and we are introducing new species over there, which is bringing about the drastic conditions. We will be talking about a little later about the invasive species. Over harvest of the natural resources, as we said, then population growth, tremendous population growth, which brings about the competition between the living beings, and that is how we are trying to encroach into the land area. So these are certain reasons what we need to think about the conservation, because these reasons are causing a crisis for this particular discipline to be active. Next slide. What are the objectives of conservation biology? When we talk about objective, that means what exactly the conservation biologist has to do, or what is the study or the discipline of conservation biology means. It evaluates the human impacts on biological diversity. Like how much of the human impact is there in that particular area? What is the destruction that it is going to get to that particular fauna and flora that is present in that area? So this flora and fauna will be damaged by the human impact. Next one, the conservation biologist will be thinking about the preservation of diversity of species. What do you mean by preservation of diversity of species? Because in a particular ecosystem, many species will be living together. We have to concentrate on each and every single species which are to be survived. So we have to preserve the diversity of those. And also we should have interdisciplinary approaches to prevent the extinction of species. We cannot say that if a frog is dying, now we don't have dissections in our zoology. Why this has been done? This is because we are seeing the extinction of these the habitats are changing. Previously, there used to be freshwater ponds, there was a stagnant water pools, etc. in nearby areas in every locality we used to have. And we used to see many frogs over there. But now this has been destroyed. We are not seeing the population of frogs at all. So that is how they are becoming a threatened species slowly. Therefore, we have to preserve, and for preserving that we have to have interdisciplinary approach. What is that interdisciplinary? It is not only the zoologist to get that frog and keep it in a pond and then allow it to breathe. No, we have to take care about the complete habitat that is there in and around the community that is there. The governmental organization should be there, and also we have to take care of the technology where we can provide that environment to them. So we should have an interdisciplinary approach to bring about the restoration of these animals. So these are the three objectives. It evaluates the human impacts on biological diversity, and it develops a practical interdisciplinary approach to prevent the extinction, and also it preserves the diversity of the species. Then let us come to the next topic, that is, what is biodiversity? Biodiversity, it is a variety of life, including different types of plants, animals, microorganisms, as well as their genes in the ecosystem. All these together forms a biodiversity. Anything you see in your vicinity comprises of the biodiversity. Nothing can be taken for granted that this is not useful. Even the small particle in the sand is very important because it holds the moisture, which is helpful for the plants to grow, and the plants will give the oxygen required for the environment, and that is how the sustenance of life will be occurring. So every small droplet, it is very important for the sustenance. So biodiversity includes everything that comes into your vicinity. It describes about the richness and complexity of the life that is there on Earth. It is, when we study diagrammatically, when we see it is a fish, it is eaten by a bird is been taken up by eagles or vultures, etc. This is diagrammatically we are seeing. But in reality, when you see, it is very complex nature, because everybody has to survive on food material, and how competition is occurring, how interactions are occurring. So it is a very complex nature, and it gives, when the species are present over there, it gives the richness of that particular ecosystem, how ecosystem is flourishing. If any of the factor is missing, then we say that ecosystem is not functional. And this biodiversity, it maintains the life balance in the ecosystem. The balance has to be maintained. And this word has been coined by Walter and Rosen in 1986. So from that time onwards, you can see that we are past approximately 30 to 40 years from when we started about talking about pollution, but still we are continuing with the pollution. Though there are abatement programs, though there are management programs to avoid this, but still it is not there. Why? Because of the community not being involved in it. Community is not taking it as a personal thing and then doing it. Koi aur kar lega, somebody else will do it for us. Let us all join hands in conserving this. That is the word we have to take it today after the lecture is done. Now, coming to biodiversity, as we were talking, to preserve it, let us see. We said richness of diversity. What type of richness does it have? It can be studied in the three headings. One is, next slide, please. Genetic diversity, species diversity, and ecosystem diversity. When we talk about genetic diversity, it is a diversity of the organism as a result of complete gene content that is present. Now, and the figure shows that the genetic diversity, that is differences in the DNA among individuals. Every individual is having a different, it will form a gene pool there. So genetic diversity, if any one of it has been lost, and completely that particular species has been lost, that genes that are being affected will completely make the animal extinct because they cannot survive in the nature or the environment. Coming to the species diversity, it is the variety or the diversity of different species found in a particular area. That means if you talk about your own area, your own locality, you will see dogs, you will see cats, you will see rats, you will see ants, you will see some ants, you will see some birds. All this forms one particular area. So variety of species are living together and forming an ecosystem. So it is a complete union of all the different species living in that particular area. It is a species diversity. Now, at a genetic level, if one organism is lost, the complete species, the complete genes that are there available will be lost. Coming to the species, one species completely will be removed. Birds will be completely removed. There won't be any birds in that particular area. What will happen? The pest will grow. Pest grows, then crops will destroy. That is how imbalance will occur. Coming to the ecosystem diversity. Ecosystem diversity, it is the interaction within the ecosystem, all the animals living together, variety of habitats together, forming a complete ecosystem, and number of communities living together forms a particular ecosystem. Like as you're living in a society, each and every individual in a house is a gene, and the number of individuals living in a particular area, it becomes a species. The similar type, all the species or habitats together make a community. So that is how an ecosystem or a colony is being made. Any one is being destroyed, then automatically that area, you will see that there is a demolitions that is occurring, and slowly the area will get evacuated. So therefore, this diversity has to be maintained. When coming to ecological diversity, again, ecological diversity, as it is an ecosystem, number of plants, number of animals are living together. So we can again divide them into, why we have to divide this ecosystem again into different categories is because it makes conservation very easy. If we know about what are the changes that have been brought in a gene, which are change that have been brought in a species, which species has been threatened, so it will be easy for the researchers to take up the data, collect the data, and have an action plan for it. Therefore, we have to divide them into different sectors. We have to divide them into different branches. So similarly, ecological diversity is again divided into alpha diversity, beta diversity, and gamma diversity. Next slide, please. There. Alpha diversity, if you see, it is a diversity of the organism found in a small localized area. Whereas beta diversity, you can see that alpha diversity, that is one single circle that is there. Similar type of individuals are found in 2 or 3 different areas. So a species found in different habitat within the same geographical region, that is called as a beta diversity. And the gamma diversity is different organism, diversity of organisms found in a large geographical area. You can see 3 or 4 different types of plants living in that particular area. So all that forms a gamma diversity. Now, it becomes very easy for us which species is able to thrive, which species is going to sustain, which species is becoming very sensitive. Therefore, based on that, we can say what is the problem that is being faced by that particular ecosystem. That is how we can strategize, we can plan our strategies for conservation. What is the importance of biodiversity? Now, you had said all the plants and animals are living together, and then if they are having a mutual understanding, mutual relationship, mutual interaction, they are all happy. What is its importance? Why we need to study about the biodiversity? Because it maintains the balance of an ecosystem. That is one thing. The second thing is economic reasons. Next slide, please. Economic reasons. What do you mean by economic reasons? That they provide large amount of material resources to us, ecosystem, food, then we have shelter, we have clothing, fire, minerals, all these are the resources what we are going to get it from the ecosystem. Now, when we talk about the economic crisis, like one example we'll be taking, we have to maintain the biodiversity. Why? Because let us take an agricultural farm. When we are taking an agricultural farm, there the pests are there. Naturally, any agriculture, when you see there are pests, and these pests has to be removed. Previously, before the onset of these pesticides, etc., how this agriculture was sustaining, it was sustaining on the natural predators that are there. So birds used to flock and they will eat only on the species that are present, the pest species that are present. So those pest species were being removed. Therefore, they used to have a good agriculture. And that is the reason why 24/7, one person is to be there in the agricultural land. If at all we are seeing that any of that the bird species is being lost, what will happen? At that particular time, you will see that the crop that is there, it will be destroyed by the pest and you will not get a good income. That is one source from the biodiversity or one source from the ecosystem. What we are getting is the economic research. And the next one is medical reason. The most important is we have a rich variety of plants. And when we see the plants, those plants are rich in medicinal values. Everything when you talk about this, it is medicinal value. You just think about when there was no revolution about these medical drugs, etc. Previously, how our grandparents, great grandparents used to overcome all these particular diseases. This is, they used to go, suppose there is a burn or a wound, they used to go and get some plant extract and then used to put, it used to heal. So every plant has the alkaloids or the toxols or uh, uh, terpenoids. These are useful for healing. So many and our Indian plants, they are rich in variety of these pharmaceutical components, and these we are losing. So medicinal value, I think you all of you might have heard the story of Ramayana, Sanjeevani. That kind of plants we have it. And then recently we have seen that Pacific Yew, there is one plant which produces Taxol, and that Taxol is helpful in overcoming cancer. So that is how most of the research has been diverted towards plant-based research, the thing where we are able to overcome many, many kind of diseases. Though we are still studying about the side effects, what it is happening, but they are rich in medicinal value. And if we are not preserving our diversity, we are going to lose all of them. We are going to lose all of them. Suppose if you have gone to any hilly areas or into the areas like villages or tribal areas, the type of the fruits or the plants what they eat is totally different, which we are not getting in our local markets. We are all getting the hybrid varieties, and you can see the health status of those tribal people. They're because they are on living on a natural diet. They are not having all these fortified diets. So they are feeding on the natural resources which are giving large amount of stamina for them. So which means that it is giving lot of health concerns, and the plants, they play an important role in the drug industry. That is, it is giving medicinal value to ourselves. Therefore, biodiversity has to be maintained. Now coming to the most important aspects, what are the different threats of biodiversity? This we can say it as human-induced rapid environmental changes. This can be given as HIRAC. The threats is, it is only culprits are human beings, because mostly all the devastation that is occurring, animals at least they know how much to eat and how much to feed and when to eat and when not to eat, but we don't know. If we keep on gathering things, even if it is of use or no use, that is how we are encroaching into the environment. And that we can give it as a simple term, that's HIRAC, that is human induced rapid environmental change. And the next term we can give it as HIPPO. HIPPO means it is not the animal what I'm talking about. It is just a simple abbreviation what I have given. Habitat destruction, invasive species, I means invasive species, pollution, P pollution, population growth, overexploitation, and overall the deforestation and climate change. Apart from that, we also have non-human causes that we will discuss now. Let us go into each one of it. Habitat destruction. Animal that is been living in a particular area, it is getting adapted to it. Now, what is happening in and around our city? Are we seeing any kind of the agricultural farms? And because of that, agricultural farms are not there. Due to urbanization, we are seeing that most of the bird species are not to be seen. Are we seeing any sparrows? Previously, we used to see so many sparrows in and around. They used to be flocking around us. But now we are not able to see those sparrows. Why? Because they used to feed on those pests and the grains. But nowadays, no agricultural land in and around the surroundings of this urban area. You can see these sparrows only where agricultural areas are there. That is, in some villages, we can see this. So there is a dire conservation need for these sparrows, and that is how we are having a World Sparrow Day, World Bird Day. All these days are being celebrated in order to educate people. So we are destroying the habitat. Because of the habitat destruction, we are removing a complete plantation from that area, and plantation forms a source for other living organisms to survive. When plantation is not there, the animals living on that will not be surviving. Like that, we have destroyed many coral reefs. That is how coral reefs have been destroyed. The carbon dioxide, we have destroyed the plantation, and we know that plants will take large amount of carbon dioxide and give us oxygen, and we human beings release large amount of carbon dioxide, and due to overpopulation, carbon dioxide content is increasing in the environment. And what is happening? The plants are being destroyed. Excess amount of the carbon dioxide, it gets dissolved in the water bodies. When it is dissolving in the water bodies, it is forming carbonic acid, and carbonic acid is not at all useful, or it is not fruitful for the animals to live. So what is happening? It is leaching of the coral reefs. That is how the coral reefs are being lost. We are losing the coral reefs, and coral reefs, we have already studied about this, the importance of the coral reefs, how important it is for the livelihood of many animals, and also for us economically. So all this are because of the habitat destructions, we are leading into one after the other causes. We have seen greenhouse effect, we have seen the ozone depletion, acid rains, all are the causes of the habitat destruction. Coming to the next one, invasive species. What do you mean by invasive species? A species is limited to that particular area. They thrive very well in that particular area. Like one example we can give it is in Hawaii, there are Darwin finches like birds. They are very happy and they never get a disease called as malaria, bird malaria. Now, due to the human migration, previously there was fragmentation, like people never used to move around from one area to the other area. They would be having their zone effect. They used to be there. But nowadays, with the transportation that has increased, with the advent of the industrialization, we have seen that we're able to transport. So some people from different part of the world has gone along with their water bottles. Previously, we never used to get mineral water. So we used to carry our own water bottles, if you remember. So people have taken their water from this place to the Hawaii, where what happened after going there, whatever the excess water that was there, they have dumped into the water bodies. And that is how that water that they carried, that was from a place where bird malaria used to be there. So what happened, that water that they have carried there, it has been contaminating that area, and the larva of the mosquito insects has been introduced in that water where never such thing was there. So what happened when these birds started drinking that water or living on that water, they started getting malaria. So the species that was not at all found in that particular area has caused disease there. And how it has happened, this is because of the invasion of a new species there. And that has been brought about by, again, the human intervention. Similarly, due to bird migration, when the conditions are not favorable, the bird migrations will be taking place. During that particular time also, some of the birds which are from different regions will go flock, and they cause the threat, that is competition will occur, and they cause the threat to the other species, and that species will be lost from that particular area and become a threatened species. The next one is pollution. We all know about the pollution, as I told you from day one of that. Where now I think all of you are going to exhibition in our Nampally area. How much of pollution we have it there? We eat and throw the plastic there itself. We don't even use the dustbin, and so many people going around there, and that the level of carbon dioxide that is increased there, because we are continuously breathing and there is no greenery. So that small area has been polluted, and heavy traffic, and that traffic is leading to sound pollution. Sound pollution leading to this. No birds can be seen in that particular area. Even human beings are also getting deaf and dumb because of the sound pollution that is there. Irritation, hypertension, All these are the various aspects of pollution. And that is only for one particular species we are talking. If you talk about a larger area, the pollution is leading into accumulation of that dirty material into the environment, unwanted substances into the environment, which is causing harm to the species. Then coming to population growth, as we all know that overpopulation, we are increasing our species continuously, and that because of this overpopulation, we are encroaching into the environment. We are not satisfied with one bedroom house, we are going for a two-bedroom house. So we are leaving this place that which is a residential place and going to the place where the encroached area is there. This is what is happening. It is not a fault, but it is happening nowadays because the situation is demanding. But we have to curb all such situations. Similarly, we have to pull up all our vehicles and then go to an office. All of us will take one vehicle and come to the office or a school. It should not be that. If people living in that particular area going to the same place should pull up to avoid. These are certain things what we can do. So we can stop pollution, and also we have to restrict the population. We have to see that the population is not increasing in beyond a particular range in an exponential way. It has to be in a stationary or in a lighter manner that it has to be increased. Then deforestation, that is habitat destruction, is one of the deforestation which is bringing about a complete climate change. We are observing the climate change. The temperatures are going very high and we are not able to see, and because of the change in the climate, our physiological mechanisms are also changing, and we are landing up in variety of diseases, variety of causes, and into the hospital. These are certain man-made causes which the biodiversity is facing a threat. Non-human causes like disruption of the ecosystem, automatically, like we have seen the pandemics, endemics that are being brought up. That is not a human cause, it is, and then volcano eruptions, floods, all these are certain calamities, natural calamities, which are also bringing about the destruction of the biodiversity species. Is it clear? Next slide. Now, what is happening in that biodiversity? Where the species are being lost. So what type of species we have? We can divide the species into three different categories. That is the keystone species, indicator species, and umbrella species. Keystone species is that species which forms the central species of that particular ecosystem, loss of which will be completely collapsing the ecosystem. Like in a forest, if tigers are not there, what happens? Only deers will be there and they will be feeding on the grass and all that, and other animals. Therefore, tigers has to be there. If tiger is completely ready, you will see only one particular population and it will be destroying the natural vegetation there. So overgrazing will be taking place over there. So like that, we have to see that there are species which become central to that particular ecosystem, and if they are being lost from that particular area, the complete ecosystem will be collapsing, and then there will be the other species which are depending on these will also be affected. So therefore, these species has to be maintained, and these species are called as keystone species. And the loss of that species will say that the ecosystem is dying. Secondly, it is an indicator species. Indicator species is that the presence of that particular species in that particular place will tell the health of an ecosystem. Health of an ecosystem. Just like a simple example, you keep a bread mold, bread in your house, and see for the next day, you will see some type of fungus growing on. That means it is spoiled. The same way, any species, like when you see a water body, large amount of ecornia is growing. That means the oxygen that is being there, that is being taken up by these plants, and sorry, the carbon dioxide is being taken in large amount of the plantation is growing, and the oxygen reaching the lower animals is reducing, and therefore you will have fish killed. That means large amount of nutrients are there in that particular area. So by seeing that particular species, we can say that pollution is more. What do you mean by nutrition? Nitrogen, phosphorus, all these chemical substances which have been taken up by the plants to grow will be more, and which will be detrimental for the fish that is living over there. So therefore, the species, that is the presence or absence of that particular species in that area, will show what is the health of that particular ecosystem. Such species are called as indicator species. One example what I've given is lichens, indicator of air pollution.
And then umbrella species. Umbrella species are those species typically they require large habitat and they require large protective areas. Again, tiger comes in this particular cheetah comes in this particular zone of umbrella species. It requires large amount of protection, large amount of area for it to survive. Then coming to next part, these species, they are being threatened. Next slide. They are being threatened. Now, one tabular column has been given by the scientists and the researchers. They said that more than 31,000 species are threatened with extinction. And in this particular figure, you see that 41% of the amphibians, they are threatened mostly. Then it is the next one, that is coniferous forest, because of the pollution. Coniferous forest, where do you find this coniferous forest? In the areas where slopes, altitudes are there. People started going there and pollution has started, and slowly that destruction is also taking place. Next, it is the coral reefs. Next, it is the sharks and rays. Sharks and rays. Like that, they have given that many species are facing extinction. Why extinction? This is because of the hierarchy or the human intervention. So there is a need for conservation of these particular animals, these particular individual species. So we have to take species wise, not as a complete ecosystem wise. Every species has to be maintained in an ecosystem function. So the conservation is required. And what do you mean by biodiversity conservation? It is a mechanism by which we bring about the protection, preservation, management, and restoration of their genes, genotype, the species, ecosystem diversity, and it is being maintained. This is called as biodiversity conservation, wherein we are taking each species, identifying each species. We are preserving the genes of that particular species if it is becoming extinct, or we are seeing that a species can be rehabilitated from that particular area to an area where they can be survived well because the area is not conducive for it. Relocating them, managing them, and sometimes restoring them. If they are being in a verge of extinct, we have to restore them by giving the proper environment and habitat to them. So all these factors together, where we are managing, we are protecting them, we are preserving the gene, we are restoring these animals, all this comes under biodiversity conservation. For the conservation, there are two methods. One is the ex situ method and the in situ method. Next slide, please. In situ conservation, it is a method of conservation of biodiversity in nature, that is within the area where they are living. Hello, sir. Hello. Okay. So the animals which are living within that particular area, within that natural habitat, they have to be preserved. So those preservation methods are called as in situ conservation methods. They are natural parks, biosphere reserves, wildlife sanctuaries, etc. Ex situ methods are those we try to conserve that biodiversity outside the natural habitat. We get them from that natural habitat, like from forest, etc. And then we preserve them in zoo, or we will preserve them in botanical gardens, or we'll take the genes and then have a gene bank, or we preserve the sperms of that in a sperm bank, or like that we will be preserving the required condition in either in the form of the cryopreservation or relocating them to a habitat where they can be preserved and maintained, like zoological gardens, etc. What are the advantages of ex situ conservation? If we see that, it is essential for life sustaining. Like we can give them the proper climate that is required for them, the food availability that is required, because they are being lost. Why they have been lost is, hello, sir. Because it is been when we see that the food they are not getting the climate, they are not getting the proper care, medication care. So all that can be done in ex situ conditions, like in zoological park. Even we can bring about the breeding action. We can bring about the breeding, reproductive mechanisms can be maintained. Then species will be protected from the poaching. That means nobody can kill them, and we can protect them. And therefore, we can bring about the ex situ conservation of the animals. That is how ex situ. That is, we all know that many sanctuaries, many zoological gardens, botanical gardens are there, which is preserving. Now, coming to in situ conservation. In situ conservation, as I told you, within the habitat, we are conserving the animals. So we have number of national parks. We have biosphere reserves. Next slide, please. Biosphere reserves and the wildlife sanctuary. National parks, they are having a scenic beauty, historical importance, then they are maintained by the government, and the animals are being kept in the environment which they can be protected from the human interference. We have number of parks like the Cobbett Park, Gir Park, Kahana Park, etc. Then biosphere reserves. Biosphere reserves are those, they have been the voluntary and the cooperative organizations which are bringing about the reserve, or they are bringing about the conservation method by maintaining the biological and cultural diversity of that particular region. Like, for example, Great Run of Kutch in Gujarat, which is maintaining Indian wild art, like Nilgiri, where they are maintaining the lion-tailed macaques, etc. Coming to wildlife sanctuaries, these areas are kept in natural condition where no illegal activities or interference will be happening, and they will be protected from killing of those animals, and government will be taking care of this particular organization, that is, and maintain the wildlife there. Like many wildlife, next slide, please. Many wildlife sanctuaries have been there. Chilka Bird Sanctuary for birds. Then we have Boxa Gourmet for in West Bengal. Then we have Dandeli in Orissa. All these are the various wildlife sanctuaries. Then coming to the most important aspect is the biodiversity hotspots. Next. Biodiversity hotspots. What do you mean by biodiversity hotspots? These hotspots are those areas where a diversity of the species, they belong endemic to that particular area. They will be strictly within that particular area only. And we know that there are a number of species present. And in India, we can find only two like hotspot areas. One is the Western Ghats and the Himalayan region. These are the two hotspot areas which maximum amount of concentration is being done to preserve those. So hotspot areas, because we have a diversity of plants over there. And then when we come to the organizations that are there, or the animals that are being labeled, we found a red list or the red book data. And that red book data contains which species are being endangered, which species are being, next slide please, which are being endangered. Endangered are those species, they are the native species whose number is declining due to threats because of the human interventions, etc. In animal species, we see that Panthera tigris, tiger, and then rhinoceros, these are all forming extinct species. Rare species are those, the animals which are in small population and restricted to a localized habitat and may be scattered widely. And then coming to vulnerable species, they are the species we are on the verge of this extinction. Next slide, please. Next slide. Here, the Red Book data has divided the previous animals into different categories. That extinct species and the threatened species, previous slide. The endangered species and the least concerned species, which there is no data in this. So there are different species that they have categorized. For this, lot of research has been done by the organizations, by the researchers. Next. And the 10 endangered species, what we can find in India are the ones which you can see on the slide: Bengal tiger, Asiatic lion, snow leopard, one-horned rhinoceros, blackbuck, lion-tailed macaques, then Kashmiri red stag, Nilgiri thar, Indian bison. These are the species which are being lost in nature. But how the management is being occurring? It is a natural resource management conservation movements and global conservation effect. Now I will just summarize these three. That is, what is happening is the natural area, the areas that are there in the communities that are there, they are trying to protect the natural condition. And slowly, when you go to the history of the conservation, we have seen that right in British India, Dalhousie has given the one statement that we have to protect the lion, we have to protect the forest. So Forest Act has come during that period. From that period onwards, the effects have been done and global effects have been taken up by United Nations, and institutions have been formed. The major institution that is there, IUCN, which will give the Red Book data information. It is controlling all the different type of the organizations that are conserving the biodiversity. WWF, it is a World Wildlife Fund. This particular organization plays an important role in raising the funds, creating awareness, and then bringing about the conservation strategies. Like that, we have number of IBWL, IBP, UNDP, United, and Man and Biosphere. This is most important aspect which has been developed in 1971 by the government of India. It was a most successful program that has been done where man and the community has been involved in maintaining the biodiversity. And it aims at conservation, improving the relationship between people and environment. And it has a logistic approach, like what type of population or the diminishing population is seen in that particular locality. And for that, a systemic, like next slide, a systemic conservation and planning has to be required. For systemic conservation, what we need to do is we have to compile the data. We have to identify what is our goal, which animal has to be restored or conserved, and what is the existing scenario in that particular area, which area they have to be conserved, which area they have to be moved, and then what action plan we have to take. And then we have to talk to the governmental organizations for bringing about the conservation strategies. And all this has been done by the zoologist, where they will be doing their research and giving their data to the government. And as to sum up, as individuals, next slide, as individuals, what we can do, because we have been talking about the governmental organization, the communities that are there, what we are going to do. And we have to support the political action. Any moment, ban polythene, yes, we have to support. We are not doing that. We have to strive hard to protect and restore the biodiversity. We should talk to the local and regional areas where the projects have been taken up in conservation. We have to help hands for the NGO organizations. We have to reduce the waste using compounds. We have to use the recycling of the substances. And most important is education to the children about the biodiversity, ecosystems, etc. These are what contribution we can do. And one or two case studies I will be talking about is the Project Tiger and Project Elephant. These two projects, that is to preserve the rich biodiversity of tiger and elephant, which are in the verge of extinction in somewhere around 1970s and 1986. They have started this project, and number of species has increased. Number of species has increased in this particular area, that from the number of reserves from 2, they have become 50 for tiger reserves. And for elephant, we will see that it has 9 reserves to 32 reserves they have become. That means the people are being oriented in the direction of conservation. That is how we are able to bring about the conservation. And the challenges what we are facing is the human interaction with the animal and the biodiversity has to be maintained and stocked. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Students and their participants, if you have any doubts, you can ask them directly. If anyone joining online, you can ask questions through the chat.
Any doubts?
In chat box, you can raise your questions. Okay, thank you. Now I invite Dr. Anta Kumari madam to express two topics.
Good afternoon, one and all. On behalf of the Faculty of Science and Department of Zoology, it's my privilege to extend vote of thanks for today's enlightening session on insight into conservation biology. First and foremost, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to our today's speaker, Dr. Meenakshi Madam, for her insightful and thought-provoking presentation. Madam, your lecture provided us a comprehensive of various principles of conservation biology, types of biodiversity, significance of biodiversity, various hotspots of biodiversity, and also various threats of biodiversity, and the challenges that are being posed by habitat destruction, climate change, extinction of different species, as well as the role of different conservation strategies. Madam, your lecture on conservation biology not only deepened our understanding of the subject, but also has truly enriched our knowledge. It has also inspired us to reflect on the urgent need for preserving biodiversity, protecting the ecosystems, and mitigating the human impact on nature. Yes, as rightly said by you, Madam, ultimately, we are the culprits. Hence, it is our duty, collective responsibility, and our duty towards the environmental conservation. Madam, I hope the audience and especially our students will carry the message and try to implement the conservation strategies required in sustaining the environment. I would also like to thank you once again, Madam, for spending your valuable time and also sharing the knowledge. I would also like to thank our Dean Madam and Director Academic, Professor Pushpa Chakrabarty Madam, for her encouragement, motivation, and support in conducting today's webinar. Thank you, Madam. I would also like to thank all the faculty members, teaching as well as non-teaching staff, and the computer department, as well as my dear students, for their active participation and cooperation in making today's session a grand success. I once again thank one and all.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, one and all.